I've always considered myself a man of composure and confidence. At 35, I had built a solid career, a beautiful home, and a life that many would envy. My wife, Laura, and I had been married for 10 years. On the surface, everything seemed perfect, or so I believed. Our life together was comfortable. We shared responsibilities, enjoyed quiet evenings, and supported each other's ambitions. Laura was a successful interior designer, her creativity bringing life and color into our home. I admired her talent and the way she could transform any space into something extraordinary. Yet, beneath the veneer of our seemingly idyllic marriage, there were cracks I hadn't noticed or perhaps chose to ignore. Lately, I'd sensed a distance growing between us. Laura was more irritable, often dismissive, and her once warm demeanor had turned cold. I attributed it to the pressures of her career, convincing myself that everyone goes through rough patches. But deep down, a nagging feeling persisted, whispering that something was amiss. One Friday evening, after a particularly grueling week, I decided to surprise Laura with a home-cooked dinner. It was our ritual, taking time to reconnect after busy days. I spent hours preparing her favorite dishes, setting the table with care, and lighting candles to create a cozy atmosphere. When Laura walked through the door, I greeted her with a smile, expecting appreciation and perhaps a hint of the warmth we once shared. Her response was icy. She barely glanced at the meal, her mind seemingly elsewhere. "I'm not hungry," she muttered, brushing past me to head upstairs. Confusion and disappointment settled in my chest. Was I overstepping? Had I misjudged her needs? Determined to salvage the evening, I joined her in the living room, hoping to bridge the growing gap. We sat in silence, the weight of unspoken words hanging between us. I reached out, attempting to engage her in conversation, but she remained distant, her answers curt and dismissive. As the night wore on, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that something was deeply wrong. The once vibrant connection we shared had dimmed, replaced by tension and unspoken resentment. I resolved to address it, to find out what was causing this rift and restore the harmony we once enjoyed. Little did I know, the answers I sought would shatter my world and force me to confront the darkest corners of our marriage. The days following our chilly dinner were a blur of tension and unanswered questions. Laura's dismissiveness gnawed at me, each curt response and cold shoulder a reminder that something was deeply wrong. Determined to uncover the truth, I began paying closer attention to the subtle changes in her behavior. It started with the small things. Laura, once punctual and transparent, began staying late at the office with vague excuses. Her phone, previously left open on the kitchen counter, was now a constant companion, always silenced and shielded. I noticed new friends on her social media, young faces, unfamiliar to me, and one in particular caught my eye, Jake, a 19-year-old intern at her firm. At first, I dismissed it as harmless. Designers often work with younger talent, and a mentorship relationship seemed plausible. But as days turned into weeks, the pattern became harder to ignore. Laura's excuses grew thinner, her late nights more frequent, and her interactions with Jake more frequent and animated. One evening, I decided to follow her after work. My heart pounded with a mix of anxiety and resolve as I trailed her from a safe distance. She left the office promptly at 6 p.m., walking briskly to her car before heading to a nearby upscale bar. I waited until she was inside before approaching the entrance, slipping in unnoticed. The bar was dimly lit, the hum of conversation and clinking glasses creating a lively atmosphere. I scanned the room, searching for Laura amidst the crowd. There she was, laughing, flirtatious, and unmistakably engaged with Jake. My stomach churned as I watched them exchange lingering glances and whispered jokes, their chemistry undeniable. I felt a surge of anger and betrayal, but beneath it, a strange sense of calm. I had always prided myself on my confidence, my ability to handle adversity with grace. This was no different. I decided to confront them, to hear their side of the story firsthand. Approaching their table, I could feel their eyes darting towards me, surprise etched on Laura's face. "Hey, Laura," I began, keeping my tone even. "Mind if I join you?" She hesitated, glancing at Jake before nodding reluctantly. As I sat down, Jake offered a stiff, uneasy smile, while Laura's facade began to crack, her earlier composure wavering. "What's this about?" I asked, leaning forward. "I couldn't help but notice you two seem close." Laura scoffed, her irritation palpable. "Oh, come on. It's not like that." I raised an eyebrow. "Really? Because it looks pretty obvious to me." Jake shifted uncomfortably, trying to maintain his composure. "Look, sir, Save it, I interrupted firmly. I deserve the truth. There was a tense silence as Laura's facade crumbled. Fine, she admitted, her voice dripping with disdain. Yes, Jake and I have been seeing each other. Happy now? A mix of relief and fury washed over me. Relief that the worst was confirmed, and fury at the audacity of her betrayal. But amidst the storm of emotions, my confidence remained unshaken. I had anticipated this moment, and now, it was time to act. As I stood to leave, Laura's voice halted me. You think you're so perfect, don't you? Maybe if you weren't so boring, I wouldn't have looked for excitement elsewhere. I glanced back at her, a cold smile forming on my lips. Perhaps you're right. But your actions have consequences. Leaving the bar that night felt like emerging from a long, dark tunnel. The chilly January air was a stark contrast to the heated emotions swirling inside me. My mind raced with thoughts of betrayal, but beneath the turmoil, a calm determination settled in. I wasn't going to let Laura's infidelity define me or our marriage. Back home, I decided it was time to address the elephant in the room. Laura was lounging on the couch, engrossed in her phone, the same dismissive attitude she had shown earlier lingering in her demeanor. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation ahead. Laura, I began, my voice steady. She looked up, her expression guarded. We need to talk. She sighed, putting her phone aside with a hint of annoyance. What is it this time? I approached her, maintaining eye contact. I saw you at that bar with Jake. Care to explain what's going on? Her eyes flashed with irritation. I don't know what you're talking about. I raised an eyebrow, unimpressed by her feigned ignorance. Don't play dumb with me. I saw you two together. It's clear something's happening. Laura's facade began to crack. Fine, yes, we've been seeing each other. Happy now? Her tone was dripping with sarcasm, her attitude as bitter as ever. I took a moment to process her admission. Relief mingled with anger, but my confidence remained intact. Why, Laura? After 10 years, after everything we've built together, why? She scoffed, leaning back on the couch. Because you became complacent. Your boring routine, your lack of passion, it was suffocating. I needed excitement, something real. Her words stung, but I refused to let her manipulate the conversation. Excitement? By cheating with a 19-year-old? That's immature, Laura. Her eyes narrowed. At least he's young and full of life, unlike you. Stuck in your ways, always so predictable. The room seemed to grow colder as tension thickened the air. I could feel the weight of her contempt, but I remained composed. Is this about more than just excitement? Is there something missing in our marriage that I haven't noticed? Laura rolled her eyes, clearly uninterested in introspection. No, everything's fine. It's just that you never take risks, never do anything spontaneous. Life's too short to be so damn boring. I took a step closer, my voice firm. If that's how you feel, maybe we need to reassess our relationship. But dragging a young man into this isn't the answer. She laughed bitterly, shaking her head. Ass's relationship? You think you can just walk away from 10 years together because you can't keep things exciting? Pathetic. Her harsh words cut deep, but I refused to let her bait me into an emotional breakdown. Instead, I focused on the facts. This isn't just about excitement, Laura. It's about trust and respect. You've shattered both. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Trust? Respect? Don't make me laugh. You're the one who didn't listen, who didn't try to keep things interesting. Maybe now you'll realize what you've lost. As she stormed towards the bedroom, I felt a surge of determination. This wasn't the end, it was a turning point. I knew I had to reclaim control, not just for myself, but for our future. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with potential twists and challenges, but I was ready to navigate it with the same confidence that had carried me this far. The days following our confrontation were a whirlwind of emotions and revelations. Laura's admission of her affair with Jake had left me reeling, but my confidence remained steadfast. I wasn't about to let her deceit unravel the foundation I'd meticulously built over the past decade. Determined to understand the full extent of her betrayal, I decided to investigate further. If Laura was involved with Jake, there had to be more to the story. I began by discreetly monitoring her activities, noting the times she left the house and the places she frequented. It wasn't long before I discovered a pattern. Laura was spending almost every weekend at the same upscale cafe downtown, a place I had never heard her mention before. Curiosity piqued, I decided to visit the cafe under the guise of meeting a friend. As I walked in, the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped me, and the soft hum of conversations filled the air. I found a secluded table and ordered a coffee, blending in with the other patrons. Scanning the room, my eyes soon settled on Laura. She was seated with Jake, their bodies angled towards each other, sharing hushed conversations and stolen glances. I felt a pang of anger mixed with a sense of inevitability. This was more than a mere fling, there was an undeniable connection between them. As I observed from a distance, I noticed Laura's phone vibrating on the table. She glanced at it, her expression darkening before she quickly silenced it. My instincts told me there was more to this relationship, something she wasn't willing to divulge. Deciding to confront them again, I approached their table with a composed demeanor. "Laura," I called out, my voice steady. They looked up, surprise etched on their faces. Laura's eyes flickered with annoyance, while Jake seemed visibly uncomfortable. "I didn't expect to see you here," I remarked casually, taking a seat opposite them. "Care to explain why this is your regular haunt?" Laura scoffed, her irritation palpable. "Maybe it's because Jake and I actually have something in common. Unlike you, who's too wrapped up in his own world to notice what's happening around him." Her words were laced with venom, but I remained unfazed. "Is that so? Care to elaborate?" Before Laura could respond, Jake interjected, his voice wavering slightly. "Look, sir, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Laura and I just got close while working on the Henderson project." I raised an eyebrow, not buying his explanation for a second. "The Henderson project? Isn't that the one that was supposed to be a major breakthrough for your firm?" Jake nodded, avoiding my gaze. "Yes, it was. Laura was putting in extra hours, and we just connected." Laura leaned back, crossing her arms defiantly. "Don't play innocent with me. You know exactly what's going on here. You're both just trying to deflect your own failures." Her blatant disrespect fueled my resolve. I wasn't going to let her tarnish my reputation or our marriage without a fight. "If this is about deflecting failures, maybe you should take a good look at yourselves instead of dragging me into your mess." A tense silence enveloped the table, the air thick with unspoken animosity. I could feel the eyes of other patrons subtly shifting towards us, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. But I stood my ground, my confidence unwavering. As I prepared to leave, Laura's voice cut through the tension. "You know what, maybe this is for the best. Maybe it's time we both move on from this pathetic marriage." Her words hung in the air, a final stab of betrayal. I took a deep breath, my mind already strategizing the next steps. Laura's arrogance and deceit had reached a new level, but so had my determination to reclaim my life and dignity. Walking out of that cafe, I felt a surge of clarity. This was the catalyst I needed to take control, to ensure that Laura's actions would have consequences. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, but I was ready to navigate it with the same confidence and resilience that had carried me through the darkest moments of our marriage. The weeks that followed our tense encounters at the bar and the cafe were a mix of strategic planning and emotional fortitude. I channeled my anger and disappointment into a relentless pursuit of the truth, determined to uncover every layer of Laura's deceit. My confidence never wavered, if anything, the betrayal fueled my resolve to regain control of my life. One evening, while reviewing financial statements for my company, a nagging suspicion pulled me away from my desk. A series of unexplained transactions caught my eye, large sums of money being funneled into accounts I didn't recognize. My mind raced, connecting the dots. Could Laura be siphoning funds from our joint accounts to support her affair with Jake? I decided to investigate further. With the help of a trusted accountant, I traced the transactions to a series of offshore accounts. The more I dug, the more alarming the evidence became. Laura wasn't just spending money on extravagant gifts and trips for Jake, she was laundering money, possibly to finance a lavish lifestyle beyond what our marriage could sustain. Confronted with this new information, I knew I had to approach Laura carefully. Accusations without proof would only play into her hands, allowing her to manipulate the situation further. I arranged a meeting under the guise of discussing our financial future, masking my true intentions behind a calm and composed exterior. When Laura arrived, her demeanor was as abrasive as ever. She sat down opposite me, her eyes flashing with a mix of defiance and contempt. What is this about now? She snapped, already bracing herself for another confrontation. I took a deep breath, choosing my words meticulously. Laura, I've noticed some irregularities in our financial accounts. Large sums of money moving to offshore destinations that I wasn't aware of. Can you explain these transactions? Her reaction was swift and hostile. Are you accusing me of something, David? Because I have no idea what you're talking about. I maintained eye contact, unwavering. I'm not here to accuse, but rather to understand. Transparency is crucial, especially after everything that's happened. Laura leaned back, a smug smile playing on her lips. Oh, so now you're acting like the perfect husband? Maybe if you had been more involved, we wouldn't be in this mess. Her blatant deflection only strengthened my suspicion. Laura, this isn't about involvement. It's about honesty. If there's something you're hiding, now is the time to come clean. She scoffed, crossing her arms defiantly. I don't have to explain anything to you. Maybe you should focus on your own failures instead of digging into mine. Frustration bubbled within me, but I remained composed. This isn't about pointing fingers. It's about addressing serious financial discrepancies that could have legal implications for both of us. Her expression hardened, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of panic behind her facade. Fine, she said through gritted teeth. I'll get back to you on this. Don't think for a second that I'll let you ruin everything. As she stormed out of the room, I felt a surge of vindication. Laura's attempt to mask her deception only confirmed my suspicions. But I knew this was just the beginning. There were deeper layers to uncover, and I was prepared to peel them back, no matter how uncomfortable the truth might be. Determined to expose Laura's hidden agendas, I enlisted the help of a private investigator. Together, we delved into her personal finances, social circles, and online activities. What we discovered was a web of lies and deceit that extended far beyond her affair with Jake. Laura had been embezzling funds from her own design firm, channeling money into the offshore accounts to support not only her lifestyle with Jake but also to invest in dubious ventures that promised high returns but were riddled with risk. The extent of her financial manipulation was staggering, painting a picture of a woman driven by greed and desperation to maintain her facade of success. Armed with irrefutable evidence, I felt a sense of empowerment. Laura's carefully constructed image was crumbling, and there was no turning back. It was time to confront her with the full weight of her actions, ensuring that she could no longer manipulate or deceive me. That night, I prepared myself for the confrontation, knowing that this encounter would be pivotal in determining the future of our marriage. As I reviewed the documents one last time, I felt a calm determination settle over me. Revenge wasn't about anger, it was about reclaiming what was rightfully mine and ensuring that Laura faced the consequences of her actions. The evidence was irrefutable. Laura's financial manipulations had not only jeopardized her own career but also threatened to unravel the stability of our entire household. Armed with the offshore account details and the private investigator's findings, I felt a surge of vindication. This was the smoking gun I needed to confront her once and for all. That evening, I decided to bring everything to light. I knew Laura would attempt to downplay or deny her actions, but I was prepared to stay steadfast. As I walked through the front door, the familiar scent of her expensive perfume filled the air, a stark contrast to the tension brewing between us. Laura was in the kitchen, ostensibly preparing dinner. Her posture was defensive, her eyes darting nervously whenever I entered the room. I took a deep breath, maintaining my confident demeanor. "We need to talk," I declared, my voice steady. She turned to face me, her expression a mask of indifference that barely concealed her irritation. "About what, David? Another one of your so-called surprises?" I ignored her snarky tone, pulling out the documents I had meticulously gathered. "I know about the offshore accounts, Laura. The money you've been siphoning from your firm. Care to explain?" Her eyes narrowed, and she took a step back, crossing her arms defiantly. "Oh, here we go. Playing the detective now, are we? Maybe if you had your own financial issues, you'd understand why I had to make some extra moves." I felt a flicker of anger, but I kept it in check. "Don't twist this, Laura. This isn't about your personal finances. It's about honesty and integrity, something you clearly lack." She scoffed, rolling her eyes dismissively. "Integrity? Please. You think you're so perfect, don't you? Always so composed, so confident. Maybe it's your fault we're in this mess. Maybe if you actually engaged with me instead of being your boring self, I wouldn't have had to look for excitement elsewhere. Her words stung, but I remained unfazed. Excitement? By betraying our marriage and embezzling funds? That's not excitement, that's desperation. Laura's facade began to crumble, her composure slipping. You know what, David? Maybe you think you're the hero in this story, but you're just as flawed as I am. Maybe you have your own skeletons buried deep down that I'm not privy to. Her attempt to deflect hit harder than I expected. What was she insinuating? Was there something I hadn't uncovered? My mind raced, trying to piece together any possible secret she might be hinting at, but nothing came to mind. Are you implying that I have secrets too? I asked, my tone icy. She laughed bitterly, a harsh sound that filled the room. Maybe. Or maybe you're just too blind to see what's right in front of you. Before I could respond, she abruptly turned away, heading towards the bedroom. I don't have to explain anything to you. Maybe it's time we both realize that this marriage is beyond saving. I followed her, not out of obligation but out of a desire to understand the full extent of her deceit. As we entered the bedroom, she continued to pace, her frustration evident. You're done, David, she declared, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and desperation. I can't take this anymore. I want a divorce. The words hung in the air, a final blow that confirmed the depth of her betrayal. I took a moment to process, my mind racing but my exterior remaining calm. A divorce? After everything? She stopped pacing, turning to face me with a sneer. After everything? You mean after 10 years of pretending to care, after pretending this marriage means something? It's over. I felt a surge of determination. This was the moment I had been preparing for. Laura had underestimated me, thinking she could manipulate and deceive her way out of the consequences. But I was not so easily defeated. Fine, I replied coldly. If that's how you feel, then let's get it over with. But know this, your actions have repercussions. I'll make sure that everything you've done comes to light. Her eyes widened, a mix of fear and defiance flickering within them. You think you can ruin me? You have no idea what you're capable of. I leaned in, my voice dropping to a menacing whisper. Oh, I think I do. And trust me, Laura, you haven't seen anything yet. As she recoiled, I turned and left the room, a calculated decision to let her stew in her own anger. Walking back to the living area, I felt a sense of clarity. Revenge wasn't just about exposing her infidelity or financial deceit, it was about dismantling her world piece by piece, ensuring that she faced the full extent of her actions. But just as I began to outline my plan, a sudden thought struck me. If Laura hinted at my own secrets, could there be more beneath the surface? The possibility that she was manipulating me on multiple levels added a new layer of complexity to our already tumultuous relationship. Determined not to let her distract me, I shook off the doubt. This was my path, and I was committed to seeing it through. Laura's bitchy demeanor and relentless deceit had only strengthened my resolve. I would reclaim my life, no matter the cost. The days following our heated confrontation were a testament to Laura's relentless defiance and my unwavering resolve. Each morning, I woke with a singular purpose, to dismantle the facade she had so meticulously crafted. My confidence was unshakable, fueled by the evidence of her deceit and the burning desire to reclaim my life. I began by delving deeper into Laura's financial entanglements. The offshore accounts were just the tip of the iceberg. With the private investigator's assistance, I uncovered a network of shell companies and dubious investments that painted a picture of a woman driven by greed and desperation. It was clear that Laura wasn't merely supporting her affair with Jake, she was orchestrating a complex scheme to siphon funds and secure her financial independence. Armed with this information, I decided to confront her once more, but this time with undeniable proof. I arranged a meeting at our home, ensuring that every piece of evidence was meticulously organized. As I walked through the front door, the tension in the air was palpable. Laura was already there, her posture defensive, her eyes darting nervously. Laura, I began, my voice calm yet authoritative. We need to talk again. She looked up, her expression a mix of annoyance and apprehension. What now, David? Can't you leave me alone? Ignoring her dismissive tone, I presented the documents one by one. These offshore accounts, the shell companies, the questionable investments, they all point to a deliberate effort to hide and siphon funds. Care to explain this elaborate scheme? Her facade began to crumble under the weight of the evidence. You don't know what you're talking about, she spat, her voice rising. You're just trying to ruin me. I maintained my composure, my confidence unwavering. On the contrary, Laura. I'm trying to protect our assets and ensure that your actions don't have legal repercussions for either of us. This isn't just about trust anymore, it's about legality. She slammed her fist against the table, her anger palpable. You think you're so perfect, don't you? Always so composed, always so in control. Maybe if you actually lived a little, had some excitement, things wouldn't have turned out this way. Her words stung, but I remained steadfast. Excitement? By betraying our marriage and embezzling funds? That's not excitement, Laura. That's manipulation and deceit. Her eyes flashed with a mixture of fear and defiance. You don't get to judge me, David. Maybe you're the one with the skeletons buried deep down that I'm not privy to. A chill ran down my spine at her insinuation. Could there be truths about me that I was unaware of? The thought momentarily distracted me, but I quickly pushed it aside. This was about her, not me. Determined to leave no stone unturned, I pressed on. If you're implying that I have secrets too, perhaps it's time we both lay everything out on the table. Transparency is the only way forward. She hesitated, her bravado faltering for a split second before she regained her composure. Fine. If you want transparency, let's talk. But know this, I won't be the one to bend to your whims. As we delved into a tense discussion, Laura revealed fragments of her own hidden life. It became clear that her actions were part of a broader pattern of deception, not just within our marriage but in other aspects of her life as well. She had manipulated friends, exploited business relationships, and even engaged in illicit activities to sustain her lavish lifestyle. The more I learned, the more I realized the extent of her manipulations. Laura wasn't just unfaithful, she was a master manipulator, weaving lies and deceit to maintain control and power. Her arrogance and bitterness were defense mechanisms, shielding her from the consequences of her actions. Despite the mounting revelations, my confidence never wavered. Instead, it solidified, transforming from hurt to determination. Laura had pushed me to the brink, but I was resolute in my mission to reclaim my life and ensure she faced the repercussions of her betrayal. As the night wore on, our conversation reached a boiling point. Laura's defiance was unyielding, but so was my resolve. It was clear that reconciliation was impossible. The trust that once bound us was irrevocably shattered, replaced by a cold animosity that left no room for compromise. Walking away from that conversation, I felt a sense of clarity and purpose. Laura's manipulative games had no place in my life anymore. It was time to execute the next phase of my plan, a plan meticulously crafted to ensure that her deceit would not go unpunished. But as I began to outline my strategy, a lingering doubt gnawed at the edges of my mind. Laura's hint about my own secrets suggested that there were layers to this betrayal that I had yet to uncover. Was there more to her manipulation than I had initially realized? The possibility that I might be entangled in her web added a new layer of complexity to my quest for revenge. Shaking off the doubt, I refocused on the task at hand. Laura had underestimated me, believing that her charm and deceit would allow her to escape unscathed. But I was no longer the man she thought she could manipulate. This was my moment to turn the tables, to ensure that her actions had consequences that would resonate far beyond the confines of our broken marriage. The revelations about Laura's extensive deceit left me with a clear, unwavering path forward. Each discovery, each layer peeled back, only reinforced my determination to ensure that Laura would face the consequences of her actions. My confidence, once tested by betrayal, had transformed into a steely resolve that nothing would deter me from my course. With the financial manipulations exposed and the depth of her deceit laid bare, I knew that the next steps required precision and calculated moves. Revenge, I realized, wasn't about impulsive actions driven by anger, it was about strategic maneuvers that would dismantle her carefully constructed world. I began by consulting with my attorney, laying out the evidence we had amassed against Laura. The legal ramifications of her actions were severe, and it was imperative to ensure that our case was airtight. We discussed the potential fallout, the steps to protect our assets, and the best way to navigate the impending divorce proceedings. My attorney assured me that with the evidence at hand, we had a strong case to reclaim what was rightfully mine and to hold Laura accountable for her financial deceit. But legal battles were just one facet of the revenge I sought. Laura's manipulative nature extended beyond finances. She had a way of turning situations to her advantage, making others doubt my credibility and intentions. To counteract this, I decided to take control of our shared social circles and professional networks. I began discreetly informing key contacts about Laura's unethical practices, ensuring that her reputation would suffer both personally and professionally. Simultaneously, I focused on securing our home and personal information. Laura had always been adept at using technology to her advantage, and I couldn't afford any surprises. I changed passwords, set up additional security measures, and made sure that our financial accounts were closely monitored. Every precaution was necessary to prevent her from orchestrating any last-ditch efforts to manipulate the situation in her favor. Emotionally, the journey was a tumultuous one. Despite the hurt and anger, I maintained a facade of calm and confidence. Internally, however, there were moments of doubt and vulnerability. Memories of our 10 years together surfaced, reminding me of the life we had built and the dreams we once shared. But these fleeting emotions were quickly overshadowed by the clarity of purpose that now guided me. One evening, as I reviewed the final pieces of evidence, a realization struck me: Laura's betrayal wasn't an isolated incident. Her affair with Jake, the financial manipulations, and the deflection tactics hinted at a deeper, more pervasive pattern of deceit. It was clear that Laura thrived on control and manipulation, using her charm and intelligence to navigate and exploit every situation to her advantage. Determined to leave no room for her manipulations, I decided to document everything meticulously. Every conversation, every transaction, every interaction that could be used against her was recorded and organized. This documentation would not only strengthen our legal standing but also serve as an undeniable testament to her actions, leaving her no avenue to escape unscathed. As the days progressed, the tension in our home grew thicker. Laura's presence became more volatile, her attempts to undermine me more frequent. She tried to gaslight me, making me question my own perceptions and sanity. But I stood firm, armed with evidence and the support of those who truly knew me. One particularly tense afternoon, Laura confronted me in the living room. Her demeanor was uncharacteristically agitated, her eyes darting with a mix of fear and defiance. "You think you've won, don't you?" she spat, her voice laced with venom. "But you'll see, David. You have no idea what's coming." I met her gaze steadily, unflinching. "Laura, this isn't about winning. It's about facing the truth. Everything you've done is on record, and it's time you took responsibility for your actions." She laughed bitterly, a harsh sound that echoed through the room. "Responsibility? You have no idea what you're capable of. Maybe you're not the man you think you are." Her cryptic remark piqued my curiosity, but I chose not to delve deeper into her taunts. Instead, I maintained my composure, redirecting the conversation back to the matter at hand. "Save the theatrics, Laura. This ends now." As she stormed out of the room, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hinting at something more, a secret that could potentially upend everything I had meticulously planned. It was a reminder that Laura was a formidable opponent, one who wouldn't go down without a fight. Unfazed, I doubled down on my efforts. I expanded my network of allies, ensuring that Laura's influence was countered by support from those who valued honesty and integrity. Friends, family, and professional contacts became my pillars, reinforcing the foundation upon which I was rebuilding my life. In the midst of orchestrating my revenge, I also focused on self-improvement. Therapy sessions helped me process the emotional turmoil, transforming my pain into strength. Physical training sessions bolstered my confidence, ensuring that I was not only mentally but also physically prepared for the battles ahead. One night, as I sat alone in my study, surrounded by stacks of documents and evidence, I reflected on the journey thus far. The man I had become was different, hardened by betrayal, sharpened by determination. Laura's actions had ignited a fire within me, a drive to reclaim my life and ensure that justice was served. But as I plotted my next move, the shadows of doubt lingered. Laura's insinuations about my own secrets hinted at a complexity I had yet to fully grasp. Was there more to her manipulation than met the eye? The possibility that I might be entangled in her web added a new layer of urgency to my quest for revenge. Shaking off the doubt, I refocused on the path ahead. Laura's bitchy demeanor, her relentless deceit, and her veiled threats only strengthened my resolve. This was my moment to turn the tables, to ensure that her actions had repercussions that would resonate far beyond the confines of our broken marriage. As the first move in my plan took shape, I felt a sense of empowerment. Revenge wasn't about losing myself in anger, it was about reclaiming control and ensuring that Laura faced the full weight of her actions. The storm I had unleashed was only beginning to gather momentum, and I was ready to navigate its turbulent winds with unwavering confidence. The weeks following my decisive confrontation with Laura were a masterclass in strategic planning and meticulous execution. Every move I made was calculated, each step designed to dismantle the life she had so carelessly built. My confidence, once a pillar of my identity, had now evolved into a weapon sharp, unyielding, and precise. My first act of retribution was psychological. I knew that Laura thrived on control and manipulation, so I aimed to strip her of both. Leveraging the evidence I had gathered, I began to expose her deceit to those who mattered most. Friends, colleagues, and even distant acquaintances started to see Laura in a new, unflattering light. I orchestrated casual conversations, letting subtle hints of her financial misconduct and infidelity seep into their interactions. Slowly but surely, her reputation began to crumble. One evening, I hosted a dinner party under the guise of reconciliation. It was the perfect setting to unveil the extent of her deceit without her realizing it. As the night progressed, I subtly presented the evidence I had against her, ensuring that each revelation hit harder than the last. Laura's facade of composure faltered as the truth unraveled before her eyes. The room, once filled with laughter and conviviality, now buzzed with whispers and shocked glances. Her attempts to deflect and deny only made matters worse. "This is absurd," she spat, her voice laced with desperation. "You're twisting things to make me look bad." I remained calm, my demeanor unwavering. "Laura, the evidence speaks for itself. There's nothing left to hide." Her bravado crumbled, revealing the vulnerability beneath. "You think you've won, don't you?" she sneered. "But you'll see, David. You have no idea what's coming." Her cryptic remark hung in the air, a chilling reminder that she was not done fighting. But at that moment, surrounded by the fallout of her actions, I felt a sense of triumph. The first domino had fallen, and her carefully constructed world was beginning to collapse. Emboldened by this success, I moved to the next phase of my plan: financial sabotage. I initiated legal proceedings to freeze our joint assets, ensuring that Laura could no longer siphon funds or manipulate our shared finances. The move was swift and decisive, leaving her scrambling to find alternative sources of income. Her lavish lifestyle, once sustained by her deceitful practices, was now on the brink of collapse. But Laura was resourceful. She began to lash out, attempting to turn our friends against me by painting me as the vindictive husband. Her lies became more elaborate, her demeanor increasingly erratic. She would show up unannounced, her tone abrasive and confrontational, demanding explanations for her sudden financial downfall. Each encounter was a battle of wills, but I remained steadfast, my confidence a shield against her onslaught. One particularly tense afternoon, Laura confronted me in our once shared office space. Her eyes burned with a mix of anger and fear. "You think you're so clever, don't you? Playing detective and ruining my life. But this isn't over, David. You have no idea what I'm capable of." I met her gaze unflinchingly. "Laura, your actions have consequences. There's nothing more to discuss." Her frustration boiled over. "You're not the man I married. You're a fraud, hiding behind your facade of confidence. Maybe now you'll see how pathetic you really are." Her words stung, but I refused to let them shake my resolve. Instead, I channeled that pain into further action. I hired a digital forensics expert to uncover any lingering secrets Laura might be hiding, ensuring that no stone was left unturned. Every email, every message, every digital footprint was meticulously analyzed, searching for vulnerabilities to exploit. The deeper I dug, the more I realized that Laura's manipulations extended beyond our marriage. She had a history of deceit, a trail of broken relationships and tarnished reputations that spanned years. Each revelation added another layer to the intricate web she had woven, but it also provided me with additional ammunition to use against her. Meanwhile, I began to rebuild my own life, free from the shadows of her deceit. I focused on strengthening my professional standing, leveraging my reputation to secure new opportunities that Laura could no longer jeopardize. Friends and colleagues who had once doubted me now rallied to my side, their support a testament to the integrity I had maintained despite the turmoil. Emotionally, the journey was exhausting. The constant battles, the relentless pursuit of justice, and the ever-present tension weighed heavily on me. Yet, my confidence never waned. Instead, it grew stronger, fueled by each victory and each step closer to dismantling Laura's empire of deceit. One night, as I sat alone in my study, I reflected on the path I had chosen. Revenge, I realized, was not merely about inflicting pain but about reclaiming my life and ensuring that Laura could no longer manipulate or deceive without facing the consequences. It was a delicate balance, maintaining my composure while methodically dismantling her world. But just as I began to feel a sense of control, Laura's earlier warning echoed in my mind. "You have no idea what's coming." The thought sent a shiver down my spine. Was there more to her plans than I had anticipated? The possibility of further twists and turns loomed ominously, a reminder that the battle was far from over. Undeterred, I steeled myself for whatever challenges lay ahead. Laura had underestimated me, believing that my confidence and strategic mind would leave her vulnerable. But she was about to discover that I was not so easily defeated. The true extent of her manipulations was yet to be revealed, and I was prepared to confront whatever she had in store. The satisfaction of my initial acts of retribution was short-lived. Laura's reputation was already taking a hit, but I knew this was just the beginning. To truly dismantle her, I needed to escalate my efforts, pushing her into a corner where she had no room to maneuver. My confidence was unwavering. I had meticulously planned each step, ensuring that every move I made would further expose her deceit and manipulate her downfall. I began by targeting the core of Laura's professional life. Her design firm, once a beacon of creativity and success, had become a playground for her manipulations. I leveraged the evidence of her financial misconduct, presenting it to the board of directors with irrefutable proof of her embezzlement and unethical business practices. The impact was immediate. Laura was suspended pending an investigation, her professional standing tarnished beyond repair. But I wasn't content with stopping there. I knew that Laura thrived on control and influence, so I aimed to strip her of both. I orchestrated a series of leaks to industry publications, exposing not only her financial crimes but also her manipulative behavior within the workplace. Testimonials from former employees poured in, painting a picture of a woman who used her position to exploit and deceive those around her. The backlash was swift and severe. Clients began to sever ties with her firm, investors pulled out, and the once thriving business teetered on the brink of collapse. Laura's world was unraveling, and I watched with a detached sense of accomplishment as her carefully constructed empire crumbled. Yet, Laura was not one to go down without a fight. Her anger reached new heights, fueling her determination to retaliate. She began to spread vicious rumors about me, painting me as a vindictive and unstable husband. Friends and acquaintances who had once supported me started to distance themselves, swayed by her relentless defamation. It was a calculated move to isolate me, but I remained steadfast, relying on the genuine relationships I had nurtured over the years to counteract her lies. Amidst the chaos, Laura made a desperate move. She attempted to sabotage my professional reputation by falsifying documents and spreading misinformation about my business dealings. But I was always 2 steps ahead. Anticipating her tactics, I had already secured airtight legal protections and had a team of trusted advisors ready to counter any allegation she might throw my way. Her desperation became palpable. I could see it in the way she interacted with others, aggressive, frantic, and increasingly unstable. It was clear that her usual composure was slipping, replaced by a volatile mix of anger and fear. But instead of pity, I felt a cold sense of satisfaction. She had pushed me to the edge, and now she was facing the consequences of her actions. As the legal battles intensified, I focused on tightening the noose around her. I uncovered additional evidence of her illicit activities, including a series of fraudulent contracts and undisclosed partnerships that had drained both her personal and professional finances. Each revelation was a blow to her already fragile state, leaving her reeling and unable to mount an effective defense. But the final piece of the puzzle was yet to be uncovered. Laura had hinted at my own secrets, suggesting that there were skeletons in my closet that could rival her deceit. Intrigued and wary, I delved deeper into her taunts, determined to expose any vulnerability she might have been hiding. What I found was both unexpected and unsettling, traces of my own missteps and compromises that I had long buried, now resurfacing as potential ammunition in her quest for revenge. This discovery forced me to confront the uncomfortable truth that perhaps my own actions had played a role in the deterioration of our marriage. But instead of succumbing to doubt, I used this newfound knowledge to further fortify my position. By acknowledging my own flaws, I was able to present a more balanced and credible front, mitigating the impact of Laura's attempts to tarnish my image. With every passing day, Laura's grip on her life loosened further. Her financial ruin was imminent, her professional reputation in tatters, and her personal relationships strained to the breaking point. She was a shadow of the woman she once was, consumed by anger and desperation. Yet, her spirit remained unbroken, a testament to her resilience and refusal to accept defeat. But I was resolute. My revenge was not just about exposing her deceit, it was about ensuring that she could no longer manipulate or control her own destiny. I had methodically dismantled every aspect of her life, leaving her with nothing but the remnants of her shattered existence. One evening, as I reviewed the final stages of my plan, Laura made a final, desperate attempt to reclaim some semblance of control. She confronted me in our now abandoned home, her eyes wild with a mix of anger and desperation. "You think you've won, don't you?" she hissed. "But you'll see, David. This isn't over." I met her gaze calmly, my confidence unshaken. "Laura, everything is over. Your actions have consequences, and you've faced them head-on. It's time for you to pick up the pieces and move forward." Her defiance was the last obstacle I needed. I had anticipated her resistance, knowing that her pride and stubbornness would drive her to lash out one final time. But I was prepared. With the legal battles concluded and her reputation in ruins, there was nothing left for her to fight for. As she walked away, defeated and broken, I felt a sense of closure. The storm I had unleashed had subsided, leaving behind a calm that belied the chaos it had wrought. I had reclaimed my life, stripped away the deceit and manipulation, and ensured that Laura could no longer wreak havoc on her own and others' lives. But amidst the triumph, a lingering question remained: what would become of Laura in the aftermath of her downfall? Would she find a path to redemption, or would she spiral further into darkness? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain: the balance of power had shifted irrevocably, and I had emerged victorious. As I stood alone in the quiet of our empty home, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The pain, the betrayal, the strategic maneuvers, all had shaped me into a man who could weather any storm with unwavering confidence. Revenge had been my catalyst, but in the end, it was the reclamation of my own strength and integrity that truly defined my victory. The path forward was uncertain, but I was ready to embrace it, free from the shadows of deceit and manipulation. Laura's reign of chaos had ended, and a new chapter awaited, one where I could rebuild my life on a foundation of truth and resilience.